everybody, from inside the future home of the Museum of the Great Wars here on the corner of Butler and Van Nuys in New Kingman, Butler, Arizona. This is history. We're here today with the great folks from Mother Road Media who always take their time to come over and do some awesome filming for us, and we certainly appreciate that. One of the things you're going to learn as you watch our shows and as you see me do a live presentation, none of this is actually scripted. Everything is pretty much just off the cuff. And I have to thank my high school speech teacher, Miss Beach, for that. I did extemporaneous speaking in high school, and that's just sort of how I still do things. It might not be the right way, but it seems to get things done. Today we're going to talk about, if you had to describe World War II with one word, what would that word be? When you think about that for a minute, and the word that overwhelmingly comes to mind is victory. Now, Churchill is who first came up with the V for victory. Yes, it was V for victory before it was peace, before the hippies got a hold of it in Vietnam. And that was sort of a big thing. And so victory became the word. And when we talk about World War II, we look at it, I think one of the neatest things about it is how everybody came together. And the American home front is probably one of my personal favorite things to talk about and to discuss. As a collector, it's certainly one of my favorite things to collect. Because I can't afford to go buy an F-4U Corsair, I can't afford to buy a Sherman tank, but I can afford to buy some really cool, neat things from the home front. And everybody pulled together, and I think the reason for that was it seemed like such an egregious slap in the face when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. One of my favorite stories, I had a customer who used to come in the pawn shop, and he was 7, living in Santa Monica when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. And he was at the movie theater, and he said they came out, they stopped the movie, and he said, all active duty servicemen, report back to your duty stations. I asked him, I said, well, what'd you do after that? He said, well, me and my buddy went and got some sticks, and we searched the alleyways for Japanese. I said, well, what were you going to do if you found any? He's like, well, we didn't think that far ahead. But if it was an egregious enough slap in the face to get a 7-year-old to go find a stick and try to search the alleyways, that's how the average American felt. And so everybody went all in for victory. And what we have over here, and we'll refer back to this a little bit, is help bring them back to you, make yours a victory home. And this was a typical war bond poster of the time. This is sort of the middle-sized ones. They had smaller ones. They had some great big huge ones. At some point in the future, we'll do a whole video on just war bond posters with all the ones that are in the collection of the Museum of the Great Wars. And one of the things that you'll see is they say here, walk and carry packages. Saving fuel was a huge thing. We're not going to talk a whole lot about rationing in this video. We're going to talk about that in a future video because rationing went so far beyond just gasoline and food. It covered everything, and we'll get into that at another point. But when you talk about walking and carrying packages, what would be more neat to walk and carry your packages than if you had your own World War II, I'm pushing for victory, true aid to the cause, little basket rolly deal that you could use to carry all of your groceries or whatever you'd bought. You got to remember, there's no Walmarts in World War II. You were pretty much buying what you were going to use for that night or maybe the next 2 days, so they would have all fit in this. And what's super cool is this thing was made by a company called True Aid. Now, True Aid, and hopefully one of you watching will go, hey, I know a little bit about that, and maybe you can drop a comment below. They were actually a beverage company on the West Coast. And so I'm thinking this was some sort of a promotional deal. This is made out of almost like a masonite material. The wheels are wood. Everything is wood except for 2 screws, 2 washers, and the 2 cotter pins that hold the wheels on. So wood was not considered a strategic material like metal was. And so this was something they put together. I don't know if these were sold. I don't know if this was like a promotional thing, maybe a raffle. I'm not sure. What I do know is it's the only one I've ever seen in my life. And this actually came out of some of what you're going to see today as well are all things that came out of the what was sadly closed was the National Homefront Museum. And so we've got some neat things that we're going to share with you. All of them are going to relate to V for victory. Like I say, that was the rally cry of the war. And so say you had been driving somewhere, it would be totally possible that you would see something like this. Here we have a V for victory. Hop in, soldier. Everybody was about carpooling. How did you get more people from point A to point B using less fuel? And so these were actually handed out by the International Order of Oddfellows. And people would put them on the windshield of their car, and it would let a soldier or sailor know that, hey, if you need a ride, flag me down, and I'd be glad to take you where you're going, or at least as far as I'm going. So that's just something that you might have seen. Now, when you got home, you might say, I'm really thirsty. I'm going to get some water, and I'm going to drink my water today in one of my victory glasses. Now, this particular victory glass is part of a series of 6, and it has a pinup girl on it. So, yes, Kelly, this is for you. I thought of you when we actually picked this up, and Kelly is sort of the trifecta, the third leg of the Motor News guys and the Mother Road Media guys, and she does all the pinups. And she came out and they did a pinup shoot with the airplane. She's going to be there when we do the drawing for the Jeep and for other future presentations. But again, glass was not a rationed material. And so a lot of different things like this. We actually have a whole set of glasses, not of necessarily these, but from World War II. Some say keep them flying. Some say remember Pearl Harbor. But it was definitely a big popular thing. Now, after you got done doing that, you might say, I need to go outside and I'm going to go water my lawn. Or you wouldn't water your lawn because it's World War II. You're going to water your victory garden. Now, the one thing I didn't bring with me today that we have that I wish I'd brought was my victory seeds. But we do have the victory spray nozzle. Now, I don't know that the victory spray nozzle is any better of a nozzle, but it is going to get you on board and help water those plants so they grow better so that we can defeat the Axis. All right. Now, this is one of the pieces that came out of the National Homefront Museum. Super, super cool. Again, I've never seen another one. Not obviously there is. I certainly hope there is. I would be mortified to think that the only victory nozzle is left resides in a single wide in Kingman, Arizona. But if it does, this is it. That's where it came from, was eBay. So now you get done doing that. You're going to go out and you're going to open up your shed to get some tools. And you're going to use your victory key. Now, the victory key actually is a legit thing. You're like, legit? How? They took a key and they were trying to save brass. So they only made the shank of the key. I believe that's the proper word. Some locksmith, Garen, is probably going to correct me and say, no, you're wrong. But anyways, the part of the key that is actually keyed was made out of brass, and it was jointed to a steel head because steel was considered a less conserved material than brass was. And so this was actually something that was made, and yes, there is the V for victory on the victory key, and the V is also where the two pieces of metal come together. So I thought that was actually kind of a neat thing when we found that. And again, it just shows how intelligent marketing was back then and how incredibly much people wanted to get on board with stuff. Now you got done doing your outdoor chores. You might want to wash up with your bar of victory soap. Now, you're going to keep seeing a recurring theme with the victory. You're going to see ... dash. And that is because that is the Morse code for the letter V. And you'll see that on all sorts of stuff. Again, this victory soap was one of the pieces. Several of these things came together out of the Homefront Museum when it closed. And so anyways, that's just sort of a neat piece there of soap that probably would still get you clean today. But I think I paid like $100 for this way back in the day. So we're not going to wash with it. Now you want to do some cooking. When you get done, you might want to place your pan on your victory pot holder. That way you can set that down. Now, one of the other things that we have, I didn't bring them with me because we're going to use them in another piece. One of the neat things people did is they used flour sacks, and this was pre-World War II, this is being done. People would turn flour sacks into towels. Now, a lot of people during World War II embroidered them, and we have an entire set that have cats doing patriotic things. Now, you guys that are new to watching our channel may not be aware of this, but I am a self-avowed crazy cat guy. And we are going to have a presentation. Yeah, like the shirt didn't give it away, right? Thank you, Jay. But we're going to do a piece. One of the neat things we have, it's super cool, is we actually have a collection of photos, original photos, of service personnel with cats. And there's cats on ships, cats in a P-47, all sorts of stuff. And so at some point, it'll be kind of a fun piece and we'll drag those guys out. We'll also bring out some of our Chesapeake and Peak stuff. We've been having a lot of fun with the guys over at Yanks Air Museum. They're over in Chino, and Jeebs, their shop cat, keeps showing up in different photos. And every time they have Jeebs there, I'll counter with a picture of a cat doing something historic. And we've sort of had a lot of fun with that. So you might, while you're, waiting for dinner to cook, you might want to write somebody a letter. You might want to do that on your Victory stationery, and you're going to do that with your Victory pencil. Now, the neat thing about Victory pencils, we have another one I didn't bring with me, and it actually doesn't have an eraser on it because you can't erase your mistakes, but we can use this eraser to help erase the axis. Absolutely. Another thing about Victory stuff is Victory mail. Now, we're not going to get into that real deep today. We're just going to gloss over it, but we figured out in World War II that, we're sending all these letters back and forth. It's taking up a ton of space. So they found out that you could take these letters, they would put them on microfilm, ship them across the ocean, and then they could go ahead and reproduce them like 2/3 scale on paper. And we'll do a whole future presentation on letters and telegrams and Victory mail, postcards, all that kind of stuff during World War II. But anyways, that was a big thing as well. But like I say, Victory was definitely the thing. While you're doing this, you might want to put some flowers in your little Victory planter there. We've got a little Victory flower holder. We've got a small one. Oops. Go back to that guy. And we have a big one. And if you notice, they both have the ... dash on them. So, like this one might be more for roses. This could be for something smaller. I don't know, like a petunia or something. That's the extent of my flower knowledge. So, but anyhow, now your kids, you want to get them involved. You want them to start saving. You want them to do things. And so you have the Victory Bank. Now, the Victory Bank, this one was never used. If you notice, doesn't have an opening other than just a little drain hole here in the bottom. And the Victory Bank would actually be, it says on here, save your small change and buy more war savings bonds. This bank will hold $18.75 in change. Now, $18.75 is what it costs to buy a $25 war bond. And again, at some point in the future, we'll probably have a whole series on war bonds and stuff like that, because it's actually kind of a fascinating thing, all the different mechanisms and books and stuff like that. Now, this will hold $18.75 in pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters. When full, break open and buy a war bond to help break the axis. So fortunately, Jimmy or Bobby or Sue never put any change in here, and this was never broken. And while we are upset that it did not help to break the axis, we're glad to have it in our collection to show things that people had around their house during the war. Now, while you're cooking and stuff like that, you might want to use some Victory flour. Now, when I brought this one home, my wife was a little irritated because I pointed out to her that this was made especially for the particular housewife. And that is something that you would never see printed on anything in 2025. And it is something that I am totally unapologetic for. As you watch our videos, you will find that we discuss history, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, in the truth and in the vernacular of the time period. And that's just the way it is. And I'm not sorry. It's the way it is. Yeah, sorry, not sorry. Exactly. So you might decide then that evening that you guys are going to go out. There's a little fundraiser. You might wear your Victory hat, your little banner, your little put it around your head. Celebrate. This is the worst of the two that we have. The other one we have is absolutely immaculate, so it doesn't really get shown off a whole lot. These things were not meant to be kept. They were meant to be used and thrown away. They were disposable. They wouldn't have even actually been thrown away. They would have been recycled. Recycling was a huge thing in World War II. Scrap drives, such things like that. And then when you get home that night, you're thirsty, you're parched. You're like, man, I need a cold one. So what you're going to drink that night is your Victory size Acme beer. Now, that's a big beer. I don't drink, but I'm assuming that's pretty large. So what's cool is that glass was not a rationed item. You could use as much glass as you wanted to. However, the tops were metal, and so they were rationed. So there's actually a couple things here. First of all, as I've always said, I always like to point out when we get things cool that are donated to us. This was given to me by a guy only known as Surfer Mike. Surfer Mike is a complete surf bum from California. I love the guy to death. And anyways, he goes to several different swap meets. And when he finds neat things that he thinks the museum can use, he buys them and donates them. And this is one of the things that he donated. This is a full quart or a quarter gallon of Acme beer. This company was making beer on the West Coast. And one of the other neat things is if you see at the top here, it's got this little deal that opens up. And if you're old enough to remember these from the 50s or 60s, these were actually originally invented in World War II. And they were so that you could reseal these bottles, whether it be a Coke or a beer or whatever. And these actually, we actually have an original package of those. A lot of companies would make these and they would put like their brand logo on them and things like that. So as you can see, we've kind of run the gambit on Victory. And this is all just, like I say, just home front common stuff that you would have seen. Uh, in closing, I hope it's something that you consider and you think about how everybody came together. Everybody wanted to support the war effort. It's something that we don't really see anymore. We've gotten to a point in our country where everything is divisive. So it's kind of neat to look back on history and see a point in time where Americans were united towards a common cause, even if it was a little bit hokey maybe and things like, your victory nozzle. But anyhow, we appreciate you guys tuning in today. We look forward to seeing you next time. And until next time, have a great day.